Well, hi everybody. Welcome to another installment of FaB, and this time I've got a whole bunch of friends here. We're going to talk about what else? Peter Jackson's Get Back, the three-part docuseries that is now sadly over, but it was so much fun. So, to start with, I'm going to introduce my co-host here, FaB, with his channel by the same name. It's Matthew Street. Hey, Matt.
Hey, Joe. So nice to be back and with such great people joining us tonight. Love these three people.
Good to have you. Okay, now we have the queen of all Beatles media, and I have her latest book here that I happen to pick out, Fandom in the Beatles, the act you've known for all these years, uh, worked on with also Ken Womack. So I have that. I don't know what happened to her other book. I had it here for Talk More Talk. The other night I couldn't find it. I showed it. Oh, there it is. I can't get at it. It's the other book she has on the Beatles is Songs We Were Singing, Guided Tours Through the Beatles' Lesser Known Tracks. Kit O'Toole, how you doing, Kit?
Oh, I'm doing great, Joe, Matt, Kate, Andy. It is so good to be with you all, and boy, do we have a lot to talk about.
Well, we have also one leg here out of the two
One leg.
legs. We have Andy Nichols, whose a podcast is about Paul McCartney, and it's called Two Legs. Hello, Andy. Welcome.
Good evening, everybody. Joe, thanks for having me back on. Kit, Matt, and Caitlin, and happy to be back with such esteemed and passionate fans to recap something we have been waiting for, and the payoff was worth it, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
For sure. And then last but certainly not least, we have the recipient of many Beatles-related gifts lately, and also
Star of the Beatles channel.
part-time guest on the Beatles channel. It's Caitlin Larkin. Hi, Kate.
Hi, guys. Joe, thank you so much for having me. Good to see Matt and Kit and Andy. Love you guys. I'm so stoked to be here.
Okay, glad to have you here. Well, I'll tell you. Okay, where do we begin with this?
It's tough. I
We've
know.
all watched all three
In
parts.
the beginning.
Well, we can start in the beginning. I was going to say perhaps just kind of like post special thoughts. Like I feel like melancholy but exhilarated at the same time, like excited about what I witnessed over the last 3 days. But I have to admit, I'm a little bit bummed out, and I don't know why that is. But
you know
I
why,
feel
Matt?
like I feel like I need the magic to keep going, and
Yeah.
it's the day. The feeling that
Yep.
you have is it's the day after Christmas feeling. That's what.
right.
Yeah.
Good,
Right.
good point, Andy. Yeah,
You've opened all your
You nailed
presents. You know, that is
all the
only
presents are open, and it's over.
You know, I was wondering, maybe we could go around first, just just keep it short, I guess. I mean, I'll
Sure.
go first. Talking about a general feeling of the whole thing overall, haven't seen it. For me, of course, for a big Beatles fan, as we all are here, I just absolutely loved everything. It was so amazingly magical and fantastic to see all that footage and to really be invested in the Beatles, everything that they went through, in their private lives. When was the last chance, if at all, that we ever really saw them at work in the studio to this degree? You never really have a lot of footage of them working and doing their process. But I really loved it, of course. And the only thing is, I've said this before, I'm still wondering if some more casual fans will find it a little too much, maybe a little tedious at times. So we'll address that as we go. But overall, oh yeah, I think Peter Jackson knocked it out of the park. And what do you folks think, Matt? What about you?
I was riveted the whole time, and admittedly, I've been a fan since I was a little kid in 1964. So I mean, this to me was just like Christmas, Hanukkah, my birthday, New Year's Eve, and everything all rolled into one. It was just. I was I couldn't take my eyes off the screen. I couldn't. I didn't want to get up and do anything. I just wanted to watch it and just. My feeling was like I had a little wooden chair. Someone put it into the studio, whether it be Twickenham or Apple. They put it down for me and said, "Matt, sit right here, but be very quiet. Don't say anything. Don't make a peep. They're not going to acknowledge you." That's how I felt. I felt like I was just sitting in there and witnessing the Beatles in their environment, in their world. I was part of it, and I was enthralled by it. And I said, there's always little things I'm sure we can talk about if there's anything we want to nitpick a little bit. Yeah, it wasn't perfect in that sense, but I'll tell you, folks, this for me as a fan for that long, I can't think of anything else. Maybe the anthology, but in my lifetime, that that comes even close to the emotional impact this had on me personally.
Yeah, and you could see that in your videos. You did a couple of videos on this on your channel, and if you really want to get his passion and emotion, it's very touching.
You couldn't help
Yeah.
it. You couldn't help
Right.
it. You're talking about this thing, and as a fan, you just you know you got to stay cool for your video or whatever you're doing with your panel or whatever. But I wanted to be a crying baby, because of how they've affected me my whole life in such a positive way. But you have to hold it together like we're doing right now. But let's be honest, these four guys and their music have changed all our lives in some way in a positive way.
Indubitably. Okay, Kit, how about you?
Well, I'll tell you, I mentioned I after watching the third part last night, I said on my Facebook page, "Wow, what an emotional roller coaster this whole experience was," and it really this exceeded my expectations enormously, because I think a lot of us feared. Was this going to be a whitewash of events and all? And it wasn't at all. It really portrayed the complexities of this period, and I'm sure we'll go into that in just a little while. But I just like you said, Matt, it was like you were there with them, and sitting in a chair off to the side and watching them. And I also thought it was fascinating just to see them develop these songs, and to see that, see them at work, and to see that, it isn't obviously all glamour, when they're
Mhm.
creating these songs. They were at work, and it was tough work to put together these songs. Every note, every riff, every line, every word. I mean, it just was fascinating, and to see them, work together. Do you like this word? You know, really done me, love me. I mean, it just, it's like, wow. I mean, this is incredible to be
Yep.
witness to this.
Mhm.
And you just saw how, and then going into the control room with them and so forth. Um, and some people may, we've seen some comments we were talking about before the show that some may call that boring. I thought, no, this is how it works. This is how an album is developed. This is how the recording process works. And I feel like, now I have even greater insight into how they created this incredible music. And I think now when we all go and listen to Let It Be Again or any of their albums, we now have greater insight and greater appreciation
Good point.
into their process. So I just feel like this was really, not to be dramatic, but this was really a revelation, and I just I loved every minute of it.
Well, my girlfriend, who's a casual fan, she likes them, but we watched it together. The second time I watched it first in the morning by myself, then evening with her, and I was wondering how she'd feel about it. So much stuff, and she said she was very, very interested because she's a musician and she knows all about process and how painstaking it can be. Uh, and in the case of the Beatles, she keeps talking that since they couldn't read music, it's more difficult. How she describes it, like trying to get how they want the harmony to go and talk and trying to find it. And it would be faster if they read music, she's saying, but she finds all of that interesting.
Yeah.
And I said, well, don't you think they're goofing around? I'm trying to, look at her side, and I'm saying, don't you think they're kind of goofing around a lot, huh? What do you think? And not being serious. Well, that's the way they work. There's a lot of downtime, and that's how they get their juices flowing and stuff. I'm like,
Yep.
yeah, that's true.
Yep.
So, okay, Andy, and you. What's your
Well,
take?
just to harken back just to Kit with the creative
Mm.
process that she was talking about before I get into my take. This is a band that just came off of a double LP of 30 songs, back at it 5 weeks later, trying to come up with these songs. I mean, Think about that in today's a double album, 30 songs, and just about 5 or 6 weeks later, you're back there trying to come up with material, and it's painstakingly slow. But when they get it together, Dig a Pony, everything about it was tremendous, and miraculous in a lot of ways. It exceeded my expectations. I knew it would. The feeling I got with this, I haven't felt this way about a Beatles event since November of 1995 with the Beatles anthology when I was 14. I got those feelings again. I mean, it was
whippersnapper. You.
Yeah, I was just thinking that.
Yeah.
I got those feelings again, and I was talking to Tom about this. Think about this now: the Beatles anthology, now the DVD home video version, that was 10 hours that covered 13 years, right? 1957, 1970. Here's one project that covers 8 hours.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it was one project. Think about that for a minute. Isn't that incredible? Hey, Peter, do the rest of the Beatles' career. Go for it.
Yeah, go ahead.
But I absolutely loved every minute of it. And one of the things that Tom and I talked about on our show when we recapped it in the wee hours of the morning was that for the first time, we've had bootlegs for decades of this stuff, and chatter and camera clicks and beeps. But you could hear the chatter, but to now actually have a visual component and see the body language, that is the payoff here. Just to see a glance or a smile,
right?
Now with all that stuff with it, home run.
Yeah, indeed. Great. Well put. Okay, Kate, how about you?
First of all, I can't believe we now live in a post Get Back world.
Yeah.
Like, this has been built up for long before I was ever born. People have wanted to see this footage.
Yeah.
And now we have a good chunk of it, which is just unbelievable. Yep. That first 10 minutes, I know we'll probably talk about it more in length, but where, we do get that recap of sort of, their lives and their career, it just really set the tone for everything. And it's just like, ooh, wait a minute. If Peter Jackson had access to all these little things, like Andy said, can we have more, please? When the Budokan footage came up, I was just like, wait, he has that? Can we have some more, please?
Yeah. Clean it up.
Right. I just want all the things. Now, as far as like, I don't know, saying that it can necessarily like be kind of boring. I kind of felt that in places, and it made me feel like really guilty for even thinking that, because I've wanted this for so long. And there were points where I realized, I was like looking at my phone. I'm like, no, I should be paying attention to what's going on here. So I even rewatched part 2 and part 3 today with no interruptions, so that I really just like get focused. Maybe it's my millennial ADHD. I don't know. But it was definitely hard to focus at times. Not because it's necessarily boring, but when I talked to my wife about it, she caught a bit of it here and there. And she's definitely nowhere near as much of a Beatles fan as I am. She's just a casual listener. She was like, I really liked it a lot. It was very interesting, but she would have preferred having some sort of a narrative to get what's really going on there. But because we're all such nerds and we've read everything and watched everything, and we kind of get what's going on. So it concerns me that for people who are casual Beatle fans, that maybe they're not getting the full impact that we're all getting.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering, because I'm hoping this is going to grow new fans. I don't know if this is the one to do it, though.
I don't think this is it.
If they catch part 3, if you're going to watch one of them, 3,
yeah,
show them 3. That's a possibility. And you brought up the little introduction. With
recap
I
wanted to get your folks' take on that myself.
Can
we go into that, Joe? Is that
sure?
Okay?
Just go ahead.
No, I just saying I was pleasantly surprised by it. I didn't know how this thing was going to start, but when they went through that 1956, 1957, I said, this is perfect for not only me, I loved it just seeing the glory of what their career was prior to the moment in January '69, but I was also happy for newer fans and casual fans. They said, this is going to be great to really suck people in and say, wow, the Beatles, that's their career in a nutshell, the Reader's Digest version. And then boom, how did we get to this point in January '69? I thought it was perfect. I'd like to hear what your all take on it was.
You know, at first I was taken aback. I was like, oh, because I was excited. Just because I was excited. I want to see the Get Back stuff. I got to sit through this. But within just a minute or so, I was like, no, this is important. This is good. Like you said, it's a quick course in Beatle history for the uninitiated. And it's also important looking back because it brings up stuff that's going to be referenced, like Brian Epstein dying.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to talk about Mr. Epstein, still with respect as they call him, since he's gone, how much trouble they've been in, kind of. And you have to really realize, well, they stopped touring. They became just a studio band. They hadn't played live. All these things were important to the narrative in the actual Jackson story he's trying to tell.
Yep.
So I'm happy for it. What do you all the folks thinking?
Well, we talked a little bit about this on our Friday Talk More Talk episode, and as I mentioned there, I think at first I thought, oh, come on, 10 minutes, why are we devoting 10 minutes to this? And let's get to it, come on. But then I thought, well, all of us, we all know the story, we're hardcore fans, but as you said, Matt, we forget, not everybody knows, and same thing for all of you out there. We all know the story, but not everybody does. Not everybody knows the ins and outs. And he was trying Peter Jackson was really trying to tell a story here, which was a smart approach, by the way, that whole calendar.
The whole thing. I love that.
Yeah, very smart approach.
Great touch.
Really organized the whole thing and really did keep, even though, it was so funny. Even though we all know what's going to happen, you just thought, I found myself thinking, like, are they going to be able to pull this together for the concert? And then you thought, wait a minute, of course they are.
Of course they do.
But he did such a great job of telling the story. So with that 10-minute segment, he was trying to set the stage for this story and, and kind of, set the, and knowing about the death of Brian Epstein, because it does loom over this story.
Absolutely.
So the more I thought about it, I thought, yeah, he did have to do that.
He did. He really did have to do it. The last thing you expected to hear, anyway, I did it. Like, Get Back. We're going to go right to Twickenham. No, we hear the opening strains of In Spite of All the Danger. And you're like, whoa, okay. Okay. We're going to go back. We're going to go back to Percy Phillips' studio in Kensington. Okay, got it. So, I thought it was, as it needed to be. It's a tough one because he's making it, it's an 8-hour thing, but there still has to be elements to tie in a casual fan. So that neatly summed it up, and that was 10 minutes. But of course, the five of us and everybody else was like, just get to the damn studio, get us to Twickenham already,
Yeah. Yep. Good point.
And I like the way the whole thing was handled. That they had. This comes later, really. We can talk about it, but the bad with the good. One of my concerns early on was the way they were talking about this 2 or 3 years ago. It was like, oh, this is going to be like all happy, and Ringo said, I thought we were miserable. We're not, and this is going to be all the whitewash. It's going to be revisionism.
No.
And not at all. In fact, like I still say after seeing this, folks, the Beatles were going to break up. You watch this, they pulled it together. Their love came through for each other. You see their love for each other, the fun they have for each other. They got the job done. They had a great time in the end, but you know what? It wasn't going to last.
We know the end of the story. Yeah.
So,
but it was easy though during these episodes to overlook some of that, like to put that on the back burner, because I remember points I was writing notes like, this does not look like a band that's about to break up in 10 months and John's going to walk away in a few months. This looks like a band that's vibrant, that's hustling, that's trying to really, crank out these tunes. It was just such a positive experience. But yet, like you said, we know the end of the story. what happened. It's almost like when things would happen, you'd almost be like yelling at the screen, like when John starts, not to get too far ahead, but like when he starts talking about Klein and he's all about Alan Klein, and I'm like wanting to yell at the screen, you fools, you fools, don't do it, you know.
And I loved that bit that it was in there. And John was so gullible, you know.
Conveniently, that conversation happens with Paul not in the room.
Exactly.
Interesting, isn't it?
And I think, you know, in addition to us, like, you know, we should just bounce off each other if things come to mind. We don't have to take it strictly, you know, item by item. Yeah. But you talk about not in the room. There's something, I'm the only one who's mentioned this, and I want to say it, which I found interesting. You know, you know, some of you heard me talk about this ad nauseum, but for those who haven't, I love the beginning of the second part. That's a really tense scene when everybody is sitting around.
I was going to ask you all. I want to hear all your takes on that too.
Yeah, and that's one of my favorite moments. I mean, for the drama of it. I mean, dramatic.
Well,
moments.
Kind of take that, Joe, but then go back to the end of the first episode when John, Paul, and Ringo are in that embrace.
Forget it.
That's the closest I came to losing it during this whole thing. Even though you knew the story, you knew George was coming back. It was like a Hollywood movie. It's like the drama of these three guys huddled. Like, what are we gonna do, guys? We gotta
with the demo of "Isn't It a Pity" playing over that.
That was so well done.
Yeah, anyway, I have goosebumps now. I have goosebumps now just thinking.
No, they're trying to carry on like who cares in a way. You know, it's like they get crazy, John. That's a bluff. That's
but you could totally tell that they're having a complete mental breakdown. I mean, come on, Paul swinging off of the scaffolding. And all that stuff.
It's a mental breakdown.
That was great, but like you could tell it was like he had to relieve some stress, or you know, he was just like completely like at a loss. He didn't know what to do, so he'd rather just go and futz around, because it's like, what are we gonna do?
Paul,
have Yoko scream and do a jam.
Yeah.
Then they got all their frustrations and energy out with that.
Exactly.
But Joe, not to cut off your point, because I really want to hear what you all think about that meeting Joe was talking about, and when Paul's eyes got kind of misty. I mean, give me some. I'd love to hear what you all thought of that meeting that Joe brought up.
That's one of the big highlights of the whole 8 hours for me. I mean, in the sense of the power and the emotion, because you see it right there in that, and it's a shot that lingers for a while of Paul with the tears in his eyes, and you can read everything. He's afraid, he's sad, he doesn't know where they're going to go. Is this the end, really? Only then there were two, he says. Which is
that's the
telling.
worst part.
Here we are in 2021, and there are two. You know, it's
Paul. There was that. That's for sure. But Paul really went through some, I mean, real emotional stuff during this. Because we're used to him being, pretty guarded in interviews and telling what he wants to tell. Wow, do you see him in this being? You see him being. There are times where he comes off, kind of controlling, then there are other times where you see him kind of panicked. I mean, you really see him saying, guys, we've got to get going here, and then that moment where he's like, we're falling apart, what are we
somebody
do?
had said to me in the live stream that I did, someone said he's shaking, and I didn't notice that.
I didn't
notice
that.
I'll have to look for that.
Third time, I did see in that shot.
Really?
His shoulders are shaking a little.
Are they really? Yeah.
He knows the camera's on him, and he's private. He doesn't. Surprised he didn't get up and walk away or anything at that point. But where I was going with this at the beginning, though, and I'm glad we got everything to talk about. It doesn't matter which way we go. But I was saying, the thing that everybody's probably sick of hearing is, I thought it was interesting during that meeting at the beginning of part 2 when John calls in. And Paul's going to take the phone call. And as soon as he leaves, Linda can't wait to be a bird out of her cage, as if she's been had her mouth zipped the whole time. And she's like, I mean, I'm a fan, she's saying, everybody wants to see them, and
that's what she's talking to. She's talking to Michael Lindsay Hogg, right?
Yeah. And he says, I'm a bigger fan or whatever, So, I mean, that's just an amazing moment there, because I think, to me, it's like she wasn't really saying too much. She didn't want to overstep her place or something like that.
Well, yeah, it's her boyfriend at the time's, work. It's like, it probably would have been a little bit uncomfortable if she said that in front of him.
Yeah. And then as soon as when Paul comes back and she says something else, he jokes around about Yoko, and he says, stay out of this, Yoko, or words to that effect.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Yeah.
what's
Which,
going
which
on
is
at
why
home?
she
Like,
didn't speak
Yeah.
you
up.
don't speak.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Oh, it was yeah. I mean that was an early part of episode 2. That big meeting, but man, that's the one that gets a lot of talking points there because it's right after the infamous Sunday meeting at George's house. So
Yeah.
let's
Mm.
recap, and who else was sitting there? And who else was present for that? Was Mal, the roadie, right?
Was
Everybody was seen.
Glenn Johns, right? Was
Michael was there. Michael Lindsay Hogg was
Ringo, Kevin
Ringo.
Harrington,
Neil Aspinall.
Neil. Yeah, Neil was there.
He's the one that said he
Um,
was trying to get
Right,
John.
right.
it was definitely one of those emotional moments in this series of
because
there were several, but that was one of
that
the
was
biggest.
one, and I think deep down Paul knew it. I think he knew it. He knew it was coming. He just, then there were two. I mean, it's written all over his face.
Yeah.
Mm.
All over his face.
Yeah.
So, Matt, you had some questions? I think that you.
There's some stuff I really want to hear what you folks really think about and what your reactions were when they happened. For one thing is I'll give my little piece. I'm a Yoko fan. Okay, I've been a Yoko fan for years now. Yeah, when I was a teenager in the 70s, I gotta admit I was one of those Yoko sucks and all that. She broke up the band. But as I matured and got older and got into more of the history of them, I garnered a newfound respect and enjoyment of Yoko and who she was and what she did for John. So I have no problem with her, but I have a weird sense of humor. So when I'm watching things like this, I laugh at different things and I make observations of different things. And I don't know, did you find it funny and stuff when Yoko's wailing in the mic and then 2 minutes later Heather wails and she's better than Yoko?
Yeah.
I mean, Yoko's supposed to be this high art stuff, and yet Heather blew her out of the water.
Heather's like, I
thought it
can
was
do
funny.
that.
Yeah.
I'm glad that bit was put in.
Yeah,
that was
Yoko
funny.
doesn't bother me, and I was just wondering what you all thought of
I'm
that.
sure
And
she
does
doesn't.
Yoko bother you at all in this?
I'm going to be honest. I did not like the Yoko screaming. Didn't like it.
Who does really, except for John? But I like this part on the second jam, the one at Apple. And I give Yoko a lot of respect, and I'm not a basher, but I gotta say, like the second one at Apple, I think who comes in after? George comes in late and Ringo maybe, and he goes, "Oh, you missed it! You missed it!"
Yeah.
I feel like saying, "Yeah, they're lucky they missed it." John's like, "This is the
God.
greatest thing,"
Yeah.
But I found it fascinating though when there was, of course, the angry jam, and then that second one you mentioned. The ones that the guys that participated, they seem to be having a lot of fun doing it. And you'd see Paul, doing the feedback,
Paul doing
with
the
his
feedback.
guitar.
He's getting the feedback with his bass.
I mean, and then Paul I think it was on drums with I think one of
the second one.
He seemed to be having a great time. I mean, I think
was that the freak out? Was that the freak out?
The freak out one.
The freak out one. Yeah. And
So,
I think he kind of got a kick out of it. I mean, they seem to be having fun, and it was a way for them to kind of blow steam, do something different. They let out some steam the first time. Yeah, for sure.
And I like Rick and Ringo going crazy on the drums, and Paul, like you said, getting the feedback, and it shows they're cooperating or they're playing along with Yoko. They're getting along.
Right.
So I mean, I think it's a wonderful thing to include in there, and it's not too much. It's short.
Yeah.
No, it's not long.
No, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt by saying, like, Let It Be, when I was a teenager in the 70s and Let It Be came out, because it was only like 80 minutes long, I remember being like sick of Yoko when I saw Let It Be. But yet in Get Back being close to 8 hours long, she didn't bother me in this series at all.
Yeah,
I was like, oh, she's there.
Well,
she's doing her Yoko thing, but she didn't bother me.
She's definitely edited out some, which I'm like, well, there was always that talk of like, oh, well, wasn't she always like whispering into John's ear and like making comments, and none of that stuff was in this documentary. So I'm wondering all the other footage that isn't there, that wasn't used for this project, maybe those things were
taken out,
still there.
Right. Yeah, I'm basing my feelings on what I saw, but you're right.
Right.
To your point, Caitlin, they talk about, Linda talks about it at this meeting the next day, about how Yoko was the mouthpiece at the meeting for John. I mean, they're both sitting there, and George was probably a little cheesed off that Yoko's the one speaking for John about the whole situation. And
Yeah.
I'm sure
Right.
that George was a little nonplussed at that.
Well,
you
don't
know?
forget, like I said, I think on Talk More Talk, I think it was, it's probably the way John wanted it.
Yep.
It's not like
Mm.
he wanted this talk exactly. Yoko's like, you just keep out of this, John. I'll do the talking.
Yeah, but it's
That's
not what
not what it
George
was.
wanted. It's not what
No.
George wanted. George
Well,
wanted to talk to
George.
John.
Oh no.
Right. Right.
But John probably wanted it. But there were times though where Yoko cracked me up. There was one scene where they were working on, I think it was "Don't Let Me Down," and they were kind of going back and forth about some stuff, and getting slightly testy. Nothing
Mm.
too dramatic. And Yoko's just sitting there reading the paper.
Yeah, she's like
and I
reading the
just,
Yeah.
paper half
and
the
I'm just
time,
like
doing
a
nothing.
boss.
Yeah, doing nothing.
You nailed it, kid. I was watching with family the second time, and my family members commented too, like, she's reading the paper. What is she
What's she
doing?
doing?
Reading the funnies or something?
Nothing.
I mean, she's look.
The
Nothing.
Beatles
I
are
don't want to
playing
spend a lot
there.
of time on this because the Yoko bashing stuff. I'm not saying that's what we're doing
Here we go.
exactly.
Here we
but
go,
there are
Joe.
people that are going to do it. It's like, look, hopefully this will bring an end to a lot of that. It's like
Yeah.
Yoko's doing this. Why isn't she doing that? Why isn't she smiling? Why is she? I mean, come on. The thing is, I know, Matt. I thought you brought up a point, right? And on your
Oh,
video videos.
Yeah, it was about just me, being around different children with my job and stuff throughout my entire
I want to
life.
address
Matt.
that openly.
Is that what you were talking? Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
I
Just
just
something like
it wasn't a
I
put down
know
to Yoko. Yo, go ahead, Joe. Go ahead.
you had
No.
said something like how to judge people. It says a lot about people how
It
they are
does.
around
In my
children.
mind, I can
Right.
get a feel and a read for people when I observe them around children and how
Okay,
they
but are we
respond to
ready?
children and how they. But to your point, I agree. This is only so many minutes of her in this environment, and so we don't, like Caitlin said earlier, there's so many more hours of what was
Yeah.
happening there that we haven't seen. I'm just basing it on what I observed watching this 8-hour documentary and what I know about people and their relationship with children and how they respond or don't respond to children when they're around them. And the feel I got, just basic what I saw, was that she has some emotional issues. The way she was responding around Heather, when you observe what other people were doing, and I'm not trying to be a pop psychologist here or anything, but when you observe what other people are doing and how they're responding and their body language and their facial expressions around Heather, and then you see Yoko in the scenes, it's totally different. And
Maybe they didn't make the cut. Maybe
I
there were things off
totally
camera.
agree with you.
Maybe.
I'm not. I totally agree
Yeah.
with you. And as I said, I'm not a Yoko basher. I respect Yoko, but it's just an observation I made from my video, was that I just feel, based on what I saw, this woman could be a damaged woman emotionally. She's had I don't know everything about Yoko's past,
I
but
mean, she doesn't seem so touchy-feely.
No,
Right.
Wasn't she going through
and
a
that's not.
custody,
And I'm not
custody
putting her
problem?
down for that. I'm just saying that what I observed. I think the woman did probably have some issues or at that time, and maybe
did
that
John.
was part of the reason why people didn't relate well to her.
And like I was saying, didn't she have a problem with Kyoko? I mean, she had her own personal things going on with her own daughter. Probably was a little.
Oh, absolutely
uncomfortable.
true. But like you said, it's just what I observed, and I just felt that the woman may have some. At the time, I know I don't have a crystal ball. I'm
Right.
just, again, for my video, I just felt it was needed to be said that in my personal life, I can read people and I get to know people based on how they react and respond to me, to others, to situations, and to children, and to whatever. And I just a knack I have. I can read people. And again, I wasn't with Yoko personally. I just saw this little documentary, which there's still 50 more hours of footage out there we haven't seen. I wasn't actually there with her, but I just felt it was an observation I needed to make. That
Okay,
I
let's
felt
move on. What
Yeah.
else? What other questions do we have?
All right, no problem. Wanted to know what you all thought about the possibility of George being so insightful when he's talking solo talk to John, and John is being so encouraging to him about it. Yeah, man, you should do it. And then George makes a statement such as, yeah, because John, if I do my solo thing or you want to do something, we can keep this Beatle thing going. Do you folks think that if he was George was so insightful to talk about this with John, do you think if that had happened, if maybe somehow better heads prevailed and they had done something like that, do you think that was possible, that they could have taken a break for a year or two, done some solo things, and then come back and maybe went well into the 70s before breaking up? What do you think? Do you think George
It's
was on to something there?
it's so tough to say, Matt. I think maybe, for George's sake, I think they could have, obviously, given the backlog of songs that he had stockpiled, that would have done George a lot of good, and he might have been more inclined to continue. But with John and Yoko and the train they were on, I don't know. If they had taken 6 months or a year, I don't see them coming back, personally.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
That's
agree.
You see
Yeah.
so many groups, over the last several decades who are able to do that, like take breaks for a while, do their own thing, and then they get back together again in this era anyway, in the modern era. But it's a shame
Yeah.
that maybe they didn't have the opportunity to do that back then.
I've
There
also,
was-
well, go ahead, Kit.
Oh no, I was just going to say there was a telling moment, I thought, at the very end, where after the rooftop concert, they came down, and they were listening to the playback, and George Martin, I think it was, said something like, they were all saying, "Hey, that went really well," and George Martin said, "Hey, that is really great. That could be a dry run for something else." Silence.
Silence.
Right.
Did you notice that?
Yes.
And I think, I don't know. I just think they all kind of knew that, as well as that, went, that there's, I think there was just a feeling of, I mean, I don't think they knew they were going to break up, like, and they didn't, of course, right then and there. But I don't know. I just got this sense they all thought, I think there's this train is
I
about
think,
to.
yeah, no, Kit,
and-
you're right. You're
and
right on
so-
there. You're right on there. And I kind of go back to what Matt was saying, not trying to play pop star, psychiatrist here, but I think if they had taken a proper break after the White Album, say 3-4 months, and then come back in the middle of '69, things might have been better. I don't think they took that break. I mean, they go back on January 2nd, right after the new year, to go do a new project, which I really think, in my opinion, was Paul kind of really sensing that things were starting to go in other directions. John's with Yoko, George is with Dylan and Delaney and Bonnie and the band coming off of that. Ringo's doing the Magic Christian. And I think Paul was probably like, let's get back in the studio and work, because I don't want this to end. And if he had just waited a few months, maybe things shake out a little differently. My feeling. And let it breathe. I mean, they just did a double album, and then they're going right back into doing, I don't think they were ready to do anything yet, personally.
Yeah, probably not. Well, Paul, he's a workaholic, and we're lucky in a lot of ways, right, gang? We
Yes.
still have
Yeah.
a lot of
Yeah.
product from Paul even today.
Exactly.
But then again, it's like being put into a pressure cooker, which is kind of what you're
Yeah.
seeing in this documentary. It's like,
Yes.
oh my God,
Right.
they only have so much time and so many things to do, and it does explode.
Yeah.
As
He
history
did a
shows.
good job,
Yep.
Peter Jackson, in the trailer, building that pressure cooker, as you said, Caitlin,
Yeah.
to get you
Yeah.
all, even though we know what's going to happen as fans, they still built that tension, which was great.
Mhm.
Yeah.
For sure.
And speaking of tension, that the scene that we all always heard about, I'll play whatever you want me to play. It's so good to see that in context, and it takes a lot of pressure off Paul, I think. That it's because it shows you that he gets up and he's like, look, he goes, I don't want to be like I'm afraid to be the boss, or whatever he said, something like
Yeah,
that.
right.
He says,
Yeah.
and for the last 2 years I've had to do that.
I'm afraid of being the boss. That was a telling line.
Yeah,
I'm afraid of being the boss. The night I watched that, I wrote that down in my notes. I texted Tom. I'm like, see, he's saying it even then.
yeah. And then in that, I know I'm jumping all over here, but we'll forget everything. Then in that really incredible moment that I didn't know was going to happen, with the hidden microphone in the
Yes.
flower
Oh
pot.
my God.
Then like Paul's telling John that you're the boss, and I'm or whatever he said. What did he say? I'm the
Yeah,
second.
no, he's always like, well, I'm the second, you're in charge. And I felt like that was a really poignant moment.
Yes.
Like, that shows you where McCartney's head is at
Yeah.
all the time, and how he always felt like second fiddle, which explains a lot to kind of like current situations, like, with his book or the way he tells stories and,
Yes.
Right.
things
Good
like
point.
that. It's like,
Good
it's
point, Caitlin.
such like it blew my mind that even in it, and he's the guy that was pressing them to do all of these projects, he still felt like second in command, if you will. It's so weird.
Interesting,
And
because
go ahead, Joe.
I appreciate so much that Paul was the one that kept them motivated, or tried to keep them motivated.
Right.
Somebody had to be in charge, and he was trying to do that. The only thing is, when you have a person like that, I think that's so into the work ethic and really like wants to always do things, you want expect everybody else to be just as on the ball and
Yeah,
schedule, let's
and
go
Yeah.
as
I
you
can
are.
relate to that. Being in bands, that's my personality. And
Mhm.
many of my former bandmates have left my bands because of that. So I can totally relate on that level.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Think
that.
about the. Go ahead, Kit.
Oh no, you go ahead.
I was
No,
going
go
to say about this scene that Joe's talking about with this hidden recorder in the lunchroom. That we only got 6 minutes of that in this version. Peter Jackson said on Things We Said Today there was 30 minutes that they didn't
Oh
even.
wow.
Oh my
That's a
God.
30-minute conversation that they only put 6 minutes in because they felt that if they had more than 7 or 8 or 10 minutes of just text, they'd lose the viewer. Not us.
Mhm.
We would take it, but
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
30 minutes.
Well, they had to be the highlights, I'd imagine. I
I'm
mean,
sure, but there's 30 minutes of those two talking, secretly on tape. Let's go, get it out.
That was, to me, that was one of the highlights
Yeah.
and jaw-dropping moments of the
Yes,
whole thing.
because
I
it
mean,
cuts right
that,
to it. Secretly in the cafeteria,
yeah,
a
I couldn't
recorder
believe
has
it. I was
been
like,
placed. I
what?
was like, what?
and also as Ken Womack said on our Talk More Talk episode the other night, let that be a lesson to us all. When we're having lunch, check the flower pot
Yeah.
on your table. Make sure there isn't a hidden microphone.
And you wonder how
We're
much
being
work
mugged.
Peter had to do to bring that out. You wonder, like, it's sitting in a vault for 50 years. What was the quality of that audio when he first got it, and how was he able to bring it to the forefront where we could
Amazing.
actually understand it? I
Well,
mean,
I had heard. I didn't hear all the audio from this. There's supposed to be 80 something discs available, but supposedly,
yeah,
right? Is that
Yes,
when they're all clanking plates and things and
yes.
Yeah.
stuff
yeah.
going on?
He was able
And,
to cut a lot of
yeah,
that down.
and
Yeah,
that brings us to that. How wonderful that was. I've heard people in the comments, they don't understand. They're saying, "Oh, I watched some of this, and sometimes their mouths don't match up, and it doesn't work."
No, they don't understand what he did there.
Yeah,
What he did there was that he took existing footage, he slowed it down, he took pictures, and there were points. This is how great of a film director Peter Jackson is. There were times when you didn't even know they weren't moving. That's how well he synced up the footage. You
yeah,
didn't
he
even
did it
know.
well.
You didn't even know that he was using other stuff to replace what didn't exist. That's how
Yeah,
brilliantly this was edited together.
But
right.
this also shows that people don't pay attention to the opening text before
yes,
Exactly.
Yes.
Yes.
Bingo.
explains it
Good
all.
point.
Good
It's
point.
like,
Yep.
Bingo.
why are you complaining? It explains it as clear as day
It
at the
tells you.
beginning of
Yeah.
each episode.
Mhm.
Read.
and
Yeah.
they had
Caitlin, those people probably just click skip intro, which is what this generation
Yeah.
does now. They don't
Well,
they don't
look,
read. They just
the
skip the
first
intro.
episode, you watch all the stuff and then you skip the intro, the other
Right.
episodes.
Exactly. Yeah.
but
Exactly.
he had more audio. There was more audio, and sometimes no corresponding picture of film
Right.
footage,
Right.
video to go with it.
Yep.
But he did it
So
so well that you could
yeah,
most
yeah,
of the time you really couldn't even
Yep.
tell. Like I know there was that scene where they were talking about I think it was in episode 1 when they were still huddled talking about where to do the show and should it be in Tripoli or should it be on a boat. That was all footage. That was just dialogue, and he just used a picture and
right.
and you couldn't even tell. It looked like it was just them huddled talking, and then because it suited because all the principal people that were having that conversation, Michael
Right.
Lindsay Hogg and all the Beatles. That was the scene where they were kind of referencing their nicknames. Oh, Francis chiming
Yeah,
in.
Mhm.
That
code name.
scene. Right, those are the code names. That there wasn't video footage for that scene, but you couldn't even tell because it was just perfectly edited together.
Done
Yeah, he
very
used some.
well.
You
Yeah.
find some footage of everybody huddled in a meeting and use it that way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So
I'd like to also get all your thoughts on, and this is kind of a kudos to Paul McCartney, the scene where Paul's sitting at the piano with Paul Clapper, the young assistant. You can tell he's just a young guy, and Paul taking the time to sit there and just go through music writing with him, playing the piano. Did you all think that was a special moment? I sure did.
Yes.
I thought,
Yeah.
wow, that says
That
a
was
lot
one of my
about
favorite
Paul
parts.
as a
Yeah.
person. What are your thoughts on that? I thought it was wonderful.
I loved it. Yeah, I thought it was very touching, and
To take time for a young guy like that,
that's when he
that's
starts going into Martha, my dear, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm
yes.
thinking to myself, I'm sitting there and I'm going, "Oh, he's writing Martha, my dear, right?" I'm like, "Wait a minute, that was the last album."
Right. He's already out.
And,
Just showing him. That's who he is,
I
Yeah.
just couldn't believe that there was actual video footage of him sitting at the piano and playing that song. When that appeared on the screen, I
Yeah.
lost my mind.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
I heard Andy scream from my house when backseat of my car came on. I could hear Andy going,
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
I did too. I did too.
I gotta say, I loved it. I loved it.
Yeah,
That
there
was
was-
great.
You
that's-
just
No, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say you really just see the Paul is just composing all the time. I mean,
Yeah.
it was just incredible. Yeah, come in like, oh, I just wrote this morning.
I
and
just wrote
starts
this
like,
this morning.
and
Yeah.
he starts
And
backseat
George
of my
too.
car.
He says like, I wrote this. Why be
It was
mine?
Old Brown Shoe.
And
It
Old
was Old
Brown
Brown
Shoe.
Shoe. I couldn't, can't even.
Yep.
Yeah, that was a
Just
great
incredible.
moment.
Yeah, John. John. As much as I love John, I mean, John's really got nothing in the tank. As far as
Yeah,
songs
you
go.
really see that.
know?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
a good point here. That John, the well was really dry for John here in this period. Across the universe, they have to dig out because they did it in '68 for that
Mhm.
Wildlife LP. And then, other than that, you've got Dig a Pony.
He was so preoccupied with Yoko. You can see where his mind was at. He was just too preoccupied. He was in the honeymoon phase, and that was that.
Mm.
Yeah.
It was nice. So how did you guys appreciate how engaged they were with each other's songs? Like Paul's not even there at one point, and to see John take lead vocal with Ringo and George and say, let's work on I've Got a Feeling. Come on, guys, let's get this right. I was very impressed with that they had that kind of motivation. Like Paul's not even there, but let's work on one of his songs, and John takes the lead vocal to guide the other two through it. I thought that was very cool. And they did it with Ringo with Octopus's Garden, with, like you said, Old Brown Shoe. The engagement they had with each other's songs, I thought was phenomenal in this special. They were
Paul was really
interested.
into helping George out with
Mhm.
Old Brown Shoe. And I think when something was coming up, I thought that John seemed invested in something.
Yeah. They
somewhat.
really seemed to care about each other's material and helping with it, which I thought was a lot different from what I always understood years ago about this period, that they could care less about each other's songs. They were just worried about their own things, but they had a vested interest in each other, in their music.
I like the moment with All Things Must Pass too, when George is going through the lyrics and he says, I don't know if it was the wind can blow the clouds away or something.
Oh,
and
yeah.
John says,
Yeah.
use my mind.
For
way-
psychedelic.
The way the script
but-
was written, it could mind or wind, Yeah.
Psychedelic. He says it looks like when it was written down, it looked like almost mind.
Yeah, exactly.
I also loved when George said to John, I remember when you told me about songwriting 10 years ago to
Just keep going. Yeah.
just keep going, get it done. Just
Get it
It's a
done.
nice,
yeah, I
respectful
mean, they're
nod.
just, yeah, I mean, it was really nice to see them. I mean, there were great moments throughout where they were reminiscing about different times they had.
All right, I gotta mention this moment, but not even 1 second where George Harrison pulls out Every Little Thing. Discuss.
Oh, that was beautiful.
that was
a
awesome.
I
beautiful moment.
kept saying to myself, "Oh, please play at least a minute of it." Well, yeah, I would have loved to
I
hear
just
that.
love the
One of
little,
my
even that little
personal
bit
favorites.
of guitar made my hand.
That was perfect. Just hearing that. Oh my
to
God.
bring out a nugget like that all those years later was just amazing.
See,
Yeah.
those are the
Keep
little
going,
bits
keep
that we
going.
like.
Yeah.
Diehards. I'm sorry.
Oh no, I was just saying, I was like, yeah, keep going.
Right. And how great would it have been if, I guess they were kind of going through those old songs. Could you imagine if they included that in that live performance?
Mm.
It makes you
wow.
wonder,
Oh my
in that
God, yeah.
aspect, where their heads were at, if they were kind of pulling out things here and there to perform live.
Yeah.
Oh, God, that would be
Did
so
anybody
cool.
catch a moment of "I'll get you"?
Yes.
Yeah.
There was a brief, little snippet. Yeah.
Yeah.
How about "Love Me Do"? To go back to the beginning.
Yeah.
That little bit of "Love Me Do" we got was one big question I wanted to ask all of you. Was there any songs that you've gained a new appreciation for since seeing this, that you didn't really care too much about before, but now after seeing this special, you go, you know what? I really like that song a little bit better now. Is there any particular one?
Yes.
you
The
think of?
Palace of the King of the Birds.
That was a new one to me.
Yeah.
I liked them all. I liked them. Nothing revealing I could think of.
Because for me, it was "For You Blue." There was a segment where they're working out "For You Blue," and it's an okay Beatles song, not the greatest Beatles song ever. But after seeing them working on it, and the sound quality was so phenomenal, I've just gained a new appreciation for that song. I said, that's not a bad little bluesy song. I like it.
Yeah.
Now, that was always one of my favorites.
Yeah.
Yep,
And I love when When Paul
Go
does
ahead.
that on Concert for George, I love that.
Oh, that's
Mhm.
great.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah.
How
That is
about
a
the
great-
part when they bring in Magic Alex's prototype of the guitar?
Oh God.
Yeah, yeah.
The heck is that?
That was one of those funny moments, yeah, that you just cracked up.
What
Oh,
a
man.
clown.
Okay, I've got a question. What is that thing that Billy Preston? They bring in Billy
Oh,
Preston's
sure.
going to town on. What is that thing?
So it's in a little, I guess for the time it'd be like a little electric organ kind of
Okay,
a
that's
thing.
what I thought, but I
Yeah.
wasn't sure. Okay, because
I
that thing
don't-
was kind of cool.
Yeah, I don't know what you would technically call it, but I feel like it's the equivalent to having like one of those
Yeah.
crazy little piano apps on your phone.
Yeah,
Right.
Amazing
yeah, that's
how
that's
intrigued they were with that
prototype.
little device, and you think about
Yeah.
what we have today in
Stylophone. It's a
2021.
stylophone, right? It's a stylophone.
Yep.
Thank you, Mark. Right.
Okay, thank you. I was trying because they never said what it was called, and I
Oh,
was
that makes
yeah.
sense because the stylus.
Yeah, and it was like a
Right.
stylus.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
There
All
you
right,
go.
I was that was driving me crazy because nobody said what it was called. It was just, hey, look at this. And,
Yeah, yeah.
that was a fun little
Think
moment.
Sorry,
about what we have
Tony.
nowadays. That's all you
Mm.
can.
We got to see all of the Beatle women at some point, or a little bit of Patty for a little.
Only
Briefly,
2
very
seconds
very
of
Yeah,
Patty.
briefly.
very
Not enough.
brief.
Not enough Patty, but I think they were experiencing problems
Oh,
Yeah.
really?
at the time.
Can I
Yeah.
just say too? Can I just say too that one of the unheralded heroes of this entire docuseries, which I've always loved them, but now I think everybody's gonna have a great appreciation for now, is Mal Evans.
Thank
Let's
you.
go. Here's
Yes.
from Al.
I was waiting for someone to say it.
Yeah.
Mal, everybody's loved Mal, but to see Mal's all over this documentary, and Peter said
Yep.
that on things we said today, and it's just so great to see him get his moment in the sun here, and I'm sure his family loves that.
Well,
I
and,
need a T-shirt. I need a Mal Evans T-shirt.
Yeah.
His-
Yeah.
You can get
His
anything
facial
these days.
expressions when he's banging on the anvil are
You can
priceless.
believe that? To me, the way he looks is as if he didn't really hang out with the Beatles regularly, as if they just pulled a fan in off the street to do this. He's like, I'm playing on Beatles.
Yeah,
I can't believe
yeah.
I'm playing with
He's
these
just such a lovable guy, and of course that's
Yeah.
at the end, there he's the one telling them, hey, they really want you to turn this stuff down, and he switches the amp off, and George turns it back on.
That's
Yeah.
great.
That was one of the keys of this documentary. I thought was cool is how we met and could have emotion for some new characters.
Yes,
Like Glenn Johns, Mal Evans, all these people were kind of in the background and Let It Be, but now they're like characters in the movie.
Yeah.
And you're
Yeah.
getting to know them and you're getting to know their personalities a little bit. And I thought it was very neat to meet a lot of these people and get to know them a little bit.
And boy, can that Maureen Starkey rock. Boy,
Yeah.
she really-
Shaking her head back and
She
forth.
loved
and
it.
Loves
she's
that
into
Well,
it.
I never knew that was her voice at the end of the rooftop concert.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
that
I
was it.
never knew that,
And then he
I
says,
guess
thanks, Mo.
I had
Right.
no clue that's what Paul was saying.
Yep.
Now
Thanks,
you know.
Mo.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Mo.
Yeah.
So
It's
great.
isn't it? Yeah.
A number of people are mentioning Michael Lindsay Hogg in the comments. Yeah, he became kind of a
he
like
became a pretty big figure too.
Yeah.
And how about everybody with the cigars? Oh my God, it was like
Yeah.
crazy.
And they drag him onto the
It-
roof too with the
it
cigar.
Yeah, that was
He's
pretty
supposed-
funny. Paul
It
pulling him
just
up.
I don't know, with all the smoking, it just made me like cry for George Harrison. I'm just like,
no.
don't do it.
Don't do
No.
it, George. Yeah,
Not that
exactly.
too. Lots of drinking too.
Oh yeah.
Lots of drinking.
Well, you have
Lots
to
of
get through
drinking.
all
During
that.
that segment when I'm so
And
tired.
toast. And
Yeah.
toast.
You
And
get
toast.
toasted. It was when he did I'm so
Oh.
tired. I thought Paul looked like he had a few too many.
Yeah.
What
yeah.
about the part when John reaches into his coat pocket and pulls out a joint and then realizes that there's cameras there and
Oh,
puts
yeah.
it back
Oh,
really
yeah,
quick?
yeah, yeah,
That is
yeah.
hysterical.
Thought
Can I
better of it.
can I ask you? Can I bring the elephant in the room out?
Uh-oh.
We've been talking about funny moments and stuff. I need to get all your reactions.
No, I know what
have
this is.
to
I bet.
because
Go ahead.
I got a weird sense of humor. I have bathroom humor in my videos sometimes.
Oh.
When Ringo announces to everybody,
Oh god.
"Hey, I didn't want to keep it quiet. I'm just letting you know I just farted."
Yeah, I love it.
All
I
right.
love it. It's great.
Paul turns quickly. I like Paul's reaction. He spins. Paul starts walking the other way. Did you guys crack up like I
Oh,
did?
yeah.
I was
Yeah,
laughing
yeah.
my ass off.
He
And it
wasn't
just
gonna
turned
say-
casually to George Martin. And I think he was
Yeah.
sitting
And
in
George-
the
and
like,
gets
the
up
funny
and walks
part-
away.
And the
No,
funny
but that just shows how close they are. Because like,
Right.
Gotta be pretty-
let's
gotta be
let's
pretty
be real
close.
here I am so
When-
engrossed in
yeah.
this documentary. That was the last thing I expected to happen. in
Yeah, I
this one,
know.
that one of the Beatles would announce that. It was too
I'm
funny,
just
too
glad. I
funny.
gotta say, I have to say this. You know what I'm gonna say. I gotta say, I'm just glad Yoko wasn't the one who farted and announced it.
Yeah,
man.
you wrote that in your comment,
Yeah,
Joe. Yeah, it was
Also,
funny.
it just brings up like certain things about certain Beatles' personal hygiene that can be kind of concerning. How John Lennon never washes his hair
why
or
is it?
cleans his
Yes,
Yeah.
but why
nails.
is it always John? Paul's hair is greasy a lot
Yeah,
too.
there
No,
were
but did you
some-
notice
It's
there's
cleaner
John's
than
hair
his.
looks very greasy in a lot of days, and then one day he walks in and his hair is like not greasy.
So
Right,
it's
so
almost
it
like
shows you that
Yeah.
he shampoos his
He
hair
blew it
at
out
least
one day.
once a week.
Right.
Yep.
I,
Yes,
I,
sir.
was- I was listening to the Beatles channel the other day, and Peter Jackson was on, and he mentioned. I thought it was kind of funny how he mentioned how smart Paul looked during the rooftop concert, and he said something like,
Yes.
"The other three look like slobs, but Paul, he was ready for it. He had his
Yeah.
nice suit on, and
that
But
suit.
but Paul, Peter said on things we said today that Paul was the only one still hesitant about doing a rooftop show. Yet the
Yeah.
day of the rooftop concert comes, and
he's
who's
all
in a
dressed
suit?
to the
Who's
nines.
in a
Yeah,
suit?
Yeah.
Paul.
yeah,
He has to be prepared.
He's always prepared.
It's that
Ever the showman.
professionalism.
Yeah.
Ever
There's some
showman.
great fashion in this.
Oh,
Yeah, I mean,
yes.
it really
Oh, yeah.
is some great.
Well, like
George's
I wish
suit.
George had worn some of those cool suits he was wearing earlier on the rooftop. He would have
Yeah,
looked sharp,
really. Yeah, he had
Yeah,
some
the
really
purple,
cool.
the purple suit.
purple,
Yeah.
the striped
Yeah.
one,
Yeah,
the
that's so
multicolored.
cool. And his
Lots
bow
of good
ties.
styles.
Yeah,
colors.
I loved one day that Glenn Johns, they called him out onto the, could come down from the booth, and he comes out in a smoking jacket. I'm like, really?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, right. I want to answer this question here. My opinion on this. I'm convinced more than ever after watching this that Michael Lindsay Hogg really wanted to tell the story of the breakup. And there's a lot of reasons for that, but because the movie came out after they broke up,
Yeah,
right?
he wanted to
Mhm.
capitalize on it.
And
Mhm.
that because what's the point of showing them staying together? I guess, but the whole thing too is there's this scene that we've seen in Let It Be. Anybody remembers? John's wearing a black shirt. You see it shot from the back of Paul's head, and
Oh, yeah.
everything. It looks like
Yeah.
just the two of them are engaged in a two-way conversation only, and John doesn't say a word. Paul's trying to pep talk things and everything, and John's just like, he's like,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Obviously doesn't want to say anything to him. He thinks he's daft or whatever.
Right.
But that sequence is in here, but it's in context, and you see it's not just John and Paul.
Right.
It's a lot of people around at that
Correct.
moment, and John talks a lot, and they're discussing things. So Michael Lindsay Hogg deliberately, in my opinion, edited that for Let It Be to make it look like they're feuding. They're not getting along. John's not even going to talk to Paul.
Well,
What else excuse could it be for editing a scene that way?
well, you said it best in your video too, Joe, where you said that they had already broken up. So he's looking for a way. Well, I got to have a story here. I have to have a narrative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I
That's what
think you're
think.
exactly right. Yeah.
And he's
He-
looking
he-
for a story, as he says so,
He
because it's true.
also seems the one hell bent on doing this show in some exotic location. How many times do they have to say they don't want to,
Libya.
Libya.
And on a boat? And George is like, well, the good thing about doing it not on a boat is you can go home. I don't want to be stuck on a boat for 2 weeks with people. Like Lindsay Hogg was hell bent on doing it in some exotic location, and he was
Yeah.
not getting
Well,
the memo. It's not
Yeah,
happening.
all he wanted was a big ending to his film. That's all he really cared about. So it, didn't matter what was convenient for them. It was what was,
Because-
gonna
because
be
it-
good for his movie.
Right.
All it was going to be was a live show at the beginning, and it ended up turning into being a movie over the span of
Right.
3 weeks. So,
Yeah. As an aside to that, they're talking about going abroad, and Paul says, well, Ringo definitely doesn't want to go
Yeah.
abroad. And I love the Beatle reference, the early Beatle reference. Well, we'll get Jimmy Nicol to go abroad.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The
of
Jimmy
Jimmy
Nickel
Nicol jokes.
gross.
Couple of
the
Jimmy
jokes
Nicol
are
references,
Jimmy
yeah.
Nicol
unbelievable.
got a
Yes.
little bit of attention in there. And Ringo says in that one part, he's saying that we've been grumpy for about 18
18
months.
months.
Yeah.
Oh,
18 months.
That was very telling about the loss of Brian. I thought that was
Yes.
very telling. They were
Yeah.
very you could tell they had still a lot of feelings about what happened to Brian and how it
And-
affected them. Yeah.
I think they all four still realized that they needed a father figure at this point.
Mhm.
Still.
He took
Yeah.
care of so much, and to have that stress just fall on them, and especially like having all those other outside people try and hound them, and like Alan Klein, like trying to weasel their way in there. And I'm
Right.
sure there are probably other people in the business at that time trying to weasel their way into that circle. And so it's just stress upon stress upon stress, and then they put this project upon themselves, more stress. So
You
Let me
know,
ask
I'll
you
tell you
all
a
let me
couple of
ask you all a
moments regarding
question.
Ringo that I like that came to mind. One of them is when Michael Lindsay Hogg says, "I really like Ringo" or something, and Linda's like, "Yeah, he makes I feel really relaxed around Ringo."
yeah,
And then there's a great bit of hand play when in the control room. I love that when Paul and Linda holding hands, right? And
Yeah,
then
Yeah.
yeah,
Ringo's hand comes over and he's like putting his hand on there, and then he's
yeah.
getting into his hand stuff.
yeah.
I thought that was so nice.
Mhm. I wanted to ask you guys, did you note the other Beatle reference way in the beginning when the member of the Hare Krishna is sitting there in the studio and we get a Hard Day's Night reference
Mm.
and
Yes.
and,
Who's
and
that
Yes.
little
John
old
goes,
man?
"Who's that little old man?" And
Yep.
Paul
Yes.
goes, "Well, he's very clean."
Yeah, right. And
Yep.
I knew you'd appreciate that, Matt, because I remember you had like a button, a pin that
Yes,
you
I
that
have
you
the very
wore.
I still have my very clean button with Wilfred on it. Yes.
Yeah. So I was thinking of
Which
you actually
I
at that
think
moment. I think oh, he's
the
gonna
one
like
Harry
this.
Krishna the one Harry Krishna guy was the one that actually ends up being in George's Material World
Yeah,
documentary.
it is.
Oh wow.
Oh
Yeah.
wow.
It's the same guy.
Yes. Yes.
And they're hanging around too. The Christian guys are hanging around while the Beatles are they're off to the side, but
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
Right.
yeah.
they're
Right. Right.
they're hanging. I didn't expect that. I didn't know that he had friends in there. Um, so what else? There's lots to talk about. I don't even know.
Well, quick thing I want to ask everyone is, what did you all think of the split screen at the end? Did it like it? Bother you? What did you think?
Loved it.
Loved it.
Yep.
Okay, well, before we talk, can I like make a confession? A lot of you know I watched this 6 o'clock in the morning the first time, part three. I'm waiting for the rooftop, and in my video, anybody who saw my review video, I take it all back now because I said in the video though I may change my mind in subsequent views. Then I watch it at night. I'm like, what the hell was I thinking? Because in the morning, bleary eyed, I'm watching it. I'm so used to seeing the rooftop more or less all full screen,
Mm,
and how do I describe it? Then if I like the stuff on the street. A lot of people are saying, "Oh, I don't want to see anything," but I like the way in Let It Be they cut to people,
Right
right?
to the street. Right.
Yeah, and sometimes it comes at a good point, like when they do. I've got a feeling, and Paul screams that bit in the middle, and then the old woman says, "I just can't see it. It makes sense," or something like that.
mhm.
It's like it's done like at a good time, so it works. And I'm like thinking, there's a few things, and I'll let you all speak. I just have to get this out.
Oh, sure.
Sure.
There's like a one moment, like things that I'm used to seeing, it was embedded in my head. So I was disappointed at first because I'm used to seeing from Let It Be. Like there's a part in there where they're doing, I think it is, I Dig a Pony. And you see in the split screen, John, like kind of at one moment, I don't know, takes his guitar and he kind of like, side profile waves it up like that for a second. And what he's really doing is he's answering George, I think, because in Let It Be, George gets down on a knee or something and salutes to John's answering
Mhm.
George like that.
Mm.
But you don't see that in the split screen. But these are little things that I have the original rooftop vision embedded in
Mm.
my head.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh wait a minute. Now we see, okay, I'm watching this you got Paul singing here, then you got the cops are down there and you got the street people here. I'm like, no, this is too confusing. When I saw it at night, it all hit me perfectly. I saw it the second time. I loved it. And I knew even in that first view in the morning, I realized even though it didn't hit me right first, I knew what he was trying to do, Peter Jackson. He's trying to tell a story. He's not just showing you a show. We're gonna watch a concert together and sit back and a bowl of popcorn. This is a story that's unfolding in real time. So
And he's
Yeah.
I
also trying
really
to
love
show you.
Yeah.
He's trying to show you Lindsay Hogg's original vision. They had 9 cameras for that. They had 9
right.
cameras.
Yeah.
Between the street, the one in the reception area, and the roof. So he's trying to pay homage to the original vision of trying to capture what was going on in the street too. I mean, I think if we have just a dedicated view in a DVD or a Blu-ray of just the rooftop, that would be great too. But
Mhm.
I think it was important to capture and show the split screen of the street, to capture the time and the people and the apple scruffs and the cops and all that. I think it was
Right.
Yeah, I
important. To have that.
really
Yeah.
love it
Best.
now. I
Yep.
love it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Even one little
Yeah.
point when John's singing "Don't Let Me Down," he flubs at the goobly goobly line there.
Yeah. Yeah.
You never saw before, but in this one, you see the reaction on George's face is priceless. He starts laughing and smiling, and then you get to see, Ringo and Paul's reaction to John flubbing the line, which in Let It Be, you didn't really get to see that. You didn't get to
Yeah.
see George's
Right.
reaction, but in this one, George is cracking up, and I thought that was Priceless.
Well,
Yeah.
speaking of reactions, the best reaction is Paul's when he turns around and sees
Yeah.
the cops.
Yeah.
Yeah.
His face just lights up like a
Yeah.
Christmas
Woo!
tree.
Does it?
He is
Yeah, he
so
did the woo,
stoked.
and I missed the woo the first time, and I think it might have been watching the Two Lakes. So somebody's I watched it,
Yeah.
and they said the woo. I said I got to look for that the second time, and how great was that?
Yep.
For that
Was-
brief moment, Paul thought their dream was going to happen.
Yeah,
They were going to
that's
get
what he
cracked off
wanted.
while they're playing.
He is
Yeah,
That's what
just
he
so
wanted.
stoked.
He said, right?
Yep.
We wanted, taking me off trying to play, and they dragged me off. That's what they
Yeah.
wanted. You
Yep.
know?
He
Yeah,
goes,
well,
they
"Okay,
all
look-
here it comes."
But
Yeah,
the
they
but
were
the
like, "It's gonna be
the Apple staff did such a great job of just keeping the cops at bay. What's going on up there? They're doing some kind of film. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's so
Yeah.
great.
No,
Kudos to that receptionist.
that
Yeah,
receptionist.
she's
was
like
the
an unsung
bomb.
hero too of this whole thing.
Yeah. And
What's
see,
going
now
on up
isn't it
there?
great that we know who she is and like her role in this? Like she
Yeah.
could have just like let them all go and they could have busted it all up. They
Yeah.
all distracted the police. They
Mhm.
let them get this stuff done. And it's like one of the greatest things in pop culture history.
Exactly.
Yeah.
She's finally getting the credit she deserves. Yeah,
Absolutely.
I don't really know what's going
don't
on up
Half a
there.
century later.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah,
That was great.
It's fabulous. And I like how right away the cops don't know for a while that this is not coming out of the studio. Like they think it's coming out of the studio because it's on the roof. It's on the roof.
Yeah,
Mhm.
isn't the cops like, isn't this soundproof? Isn't this soundproof? Well, they're not really inside. They're outside.
Yeah.
Mm.
And you can't go up there because there's a weight issue and there's too many people up there.
Yeah. When the sergeant comes over,
Well, I the two young guys, they weren't too bad. They go in and they say their thing.
Yeah,
Hey, come
were
on, this
cool.
is breaching the peace. They were pretty cool, but the sergeant I thought was very cool. He comes in, he's very polite,
Yeah.
he's very
Yeah.
professional, and he
Yeah.
pulls the two young guys off. Come on, we're getting off. We're not going
Hey.
to be caught arresting the Beatles on camera. So
you know what?
it wouldn't look good.
Paul's grandfather said, Matt, don't forget, when Ringo got arrested, he goes, all coppers are villains. Would you like a cup of tea?
Right. Right.
Have they
See,
roughed you up
sly
yet?
villains.
And even
Yeah.
the sergeant, he even asks, "May I go in? Like, can I go in?"
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're so
Yeah.
polite.
May I
They're
go in?
so
Do you mind?
polite. May I go
Yeah.
in? And today they would have been ramming the door down.
Yeah, I think I got to play dumb with cops. What Brent
One of
said.
those big cement one of those big cement things.
Oh yeah, boom! Get out of the way.
I didn't see this. Bean says that Paul had his middle finger extended.
I
When
didn't
Paul
know. I didn't
turns towards
notice.
the cops, points his
notice.
hand in their direction.
Huh.
That's why you're going to keep noticing things if you miss
Yeah.
things, right?
I'll watch
First
that again.
time.
Oh yeah. Oh, exactly. Yeah. Paul saw the cops. Yeah, his face lit up like a Christmas
That's the
tree. And he's
best
like, "This is
part.
gonna be great."
Wow, it's going to happen. Yeah.
No.
Yeah, not
One of the
yeah.
comments, Christian asked, "I wonder if the two cops are still alive." The two young cops, they looked all of 21 years old at
Yep.
the time.
Yeah.
They looked like they were babies.
That was going to be my next question. I'm hoping if there's any bonus material that maybe there's an interview out there
I don't
somewhere with these
Well, they're
guys.
credited-
Oh, wouldn't that
where they're
be
at.
great?
Be in their
They're
They're
credited.
stars
70s.
now.
They're
well into their
credited in the
70s.
film. So
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you ugly great brute. You got sadism stamped all over your bloated British kisser. I think I've seen the movie a lot of times.
Have they
Oh.
roughed you up yet?
one of my favorite on the street interviews is there's a older man who doesn't look like he'd be a fan of the Beatles, but he's like, oh
Yeah.
yes, I like their music quite a lot, and and then the, the interviewer said, well, would you like one of your daughters to date the Beatles? And he said, well, yes, they've got a lot of money.
They have money.
Yeah.
Like good point, sir.
To see that old crow, it's great that now we get it. To also see us say, "He woke me up out of my sleep."
That
Yeah.
one was
You got a little more.
hysterical.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right out
It
of
was-
Monty Python.
It was just so
Yes.
well done overall. That whole sequence, Peter Jackson just
Mhm.
knocked it out of the park. And it's funny
Yeah.
because, like, I didn't think I would care so much about the rooftop concerts. Like, yeah, we've seen it, whatever. But I think all of those elements made it way more interesting. And I think that's why it's the best part of this whole thing.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I'm not sure about this because I'd say the first time I saw it when I was like, oh, I don't know about all these screens and the changes. The second time I think that a lot of the things when you spend a lot of time with the cops, which I like, just was done when they were between songs. Some of it, I think, when they're getting ready, or some of the things changed when you were doing a song for the second time, maybe. So
Mm.
you might have got like, I don't know, I've got a feeling pretty good once, and then the second time then you might see a little more. So it wasn't. It
Yeah.
didn't take away from any one song. They all had their moment, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well-
So,
yeah, you made a good point, Caitlin. That it's it was Peter Jackson telling a story, and
Yeah.
Yes.
and that's and so maybe just showing the concert period, wouldn't that would only give
I
you
know
one part of it.
personally it would have lost my interest. The only thing that would have been exciting about that for me is the quality of the footage itself.
Right.
And so this definitely just adds more emotion, whether it be, happy tears or crying, laughing tears, because
Right.
it's so good
Yeah.
and so funny.
Yeah.
So it just all works.
Well, it was going to be longer no matter what. And you notice the bit with Ringo and George, I think, they take a break and look over the roof to see who's
Yes.
down the
Yeah.
street.
That was interesting. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And another highlight, okay, post rooftop, the footage back down in the control room.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
highlight.
Gold
Yeah.
with them listening to the playback.
Everybody's into it.
Did
Yeah.
you guys, folks, enjoy the using it during the credits? Though, did you think it was more of a blooper reel, or did you like that?
Let's get to that.
Oh.
Yeah.
No, I thought it was definitely interesting, an interesting way to end the movie, because it kind of threw me off for a few minutes. I was like, wait a minute, it's over? But they hadn't gotten up to like that, what happened after when they recorded all that stuff. And thankfully
Right.
they had that playing over the credits. So it definitely felt appropriate, and it stuck with the timeline.
Yeah, it did. Big negative. That's the only negative I have in this whole thing, though, is that. It's the only negative I have with that is
Yeah.
those. Go ahead,
Go
Matt.
ahead, Andy. I just want to say I felt it ended kind of on a whimper. That's just my thought.
Yeah, that's the main thing that if there's a complaint that people have is that. Now, I would have liked to see the full performances like we had in Let It Be.
Two of us, The Long and Winding Road and Let It Be, needed to have full, uninterrupted performances in this series.
Yeah,
somewhere.
for sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not
Those are-
credit, not credit scroll.
Those are all important songs, and they deserve more than.
I mean, I wouldn't have minded the credit
credits.
scroll as is. I mean, with just outtakes too after the songs.
Hmm.
You
Mhm.
know, or how about some people were suggesting, just like they did at the beginning with the intro to the Beatles, what happened after this? How
Right.
Sure.
Oh, that's a
Glyn
good
Johns
I
point.
didn't
didn't-
even think of that. Yeah.
Good point.
Like,
Yep.
Glyn Johns wound up after all this. They didn't use his version after all this.
Right.
And
Right.
it was shelved. You could say something like, it wound up being shelved, and then they went ahead and did Abbey Road, and they could say something like, which turned out to be arguably maybe their greatest album.
Triumph. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I'm wondering if
postscript.
maybe that would have been a bit too much like the ending of the 8 Days a Week documentary.
Oh,
Mm.
it's
Good
been
point.
a while
Good
since I
point.
saw that.
You
Good
know?
point, Caitlin. Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah, no,
Or
okay. It's been a
I
while.
like the
since I saw it.
character update idea though. Like Glyn Johns went on to produce blah 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 blah. Mal Evans
Sure.
Yeah.
did this, but then unfortunately passed away in 1976. It would have been cool to have the
Oh, yeah.
characters and what happened to all.
Character,
yeah.
not the Beatles, but the other people, Michael Lindsay
Yeah.
Hogg,
Right.
Ian
Yeah.
Johns.
Mike-
It would be
Michael
real
Lindsay Hogg.
sad with Mal. Boy, that would really
Yeah.
be sad.
Yeah.
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 But
But-
yeah, it just would have been interesting to see what happened to a PC Ray such and such. He went on to be a sergeant and then retired on a hip injury.
Well,
or
one of
something.
those cops ended up being one of the head of security for Princess Diana. I was reading.
Oh, really?
Really?
Wow.
Yes.
My God.
I mean, that's interesting stuff.
cool.
That would have been cool to see that kind of thing.
But yeah,
Yeah.
I thought that was extremely odd and I mean, it was great footage. I mean, I loved John mimicking Paul and mouthing "Let It Be." I mean, that was pretty funny. But those were all. I mean, yeah, Long and Winding Road, Two of Us, Let It Be. Those are three very important songs, and
Yeah,
and
it's
yeah, they
pivotal.
shouldn't have been relegated to
Well,
the.
You could
credits.
argue. I mean, this is just trying to be I can't think what the term is now. It's failing me when when you're trying devil's advocate.
Mhm.
Peter Jackson said, well, he tried his best not to duplicate too much from Let It Be, the movie, even though that could be an exception. You kind of need those in here as a day 31,
Mhm. Yeah.
31st, 31st.
Yeah.
I meant. Yeah, that would have been good. So that
No-
I know he was trying to avoid a lot of that, and for the most part, I think he succeeded. But it repeating Let It Be. However, there are moments because I know Let It Be like the back of my hand. I never saw that before. No, seriously. Like I was disappointed, majorly disappointed that Dig It was not longer because listening to that wonderful Things We Said Today interview,
Oh,
4-hour interview with Jackson.
tremendous.
Yeah.
You know, he had said that, well, we're using the long version of Dig It. Then he stopped and said, well, not the whole thing, because it's very, he said 12 minutes or something, but he made it sound like it was going to be longer. And in the Let It Be film, it's longer than what we got here.
Mm.
It's
You know,
it's
I wish he would have made it like a little long. I don't know how long, 5 minutes instead of like, a minute or whatever is in there, a
Yeah.
minute and a half.
true, but one thing Peter did not in that interview that you referenced, Joe. Peter did not want to get into Get Back has come out and his version is better than Michael Lindsay Hogg's. He wanted to have it two separate. He didn't want to get into a competition thing of whose film was better, and
True.
It's pretty
Yeah.
evident that Peter was and if he included those three songs, to your point, Kit, is that too much like Let It Be? I don't know.
Maybe.
And the bit with Ringo that I love from the original Let It Be, one of my favorite bits is Octopus's Garden,
Yeah.
when George and Ringo are going
Working
at it,
on it.
and George is helping Ringo. Now it's funny, you have more of that here. However, in Let It Be, the part that they show is from the top. It's okay, so from the top, and he starts doing the whole thing. I like to be underneath. He goes with like almost the whole so what he has up to that point. That's not in this one. I'm like, so I still need Let It Be for that. There's
Right,
certain like
yeah.
things
Yeah.
I need Let It Be. And the fast version of Two of Us, there's more of that in Let It Be.
Yeah.
No, you're
Another
right.
thing that I really rather enjoyed was that anytime they were performing a song and it was the one that was either used on the album or a single, it had that on the screen for
told
you.
you.
And I think that
Yeah.
was
Yes.
amazing to be like,
Yeah.
oh my God, that's the one that's on the record. And here's a visual of it.
Yeah.
Which
Like,
we all
that
knew, though. We
was-
all knew that. The second we heard
Right.
those songs, we knew
Yes,
it. Now,
right
I
away.
absolutely knew
We
it by
knew that.
ear, but to like get confirmation
Yeah. That was
Yeah.
good.
is it was so good.
Is anybody like me? Do you think, so when they sang that, George was wearing this shirt, and Paul
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
wearing that. Paul's hair was like that. It's almost like
Yeah.
I don't want to know what they look like, because for the longest time, even though I'm a big fan, I wondered like, well, where exactly and when did they record "Don't Let Me Down," the B side, and
Yeah.
and so on and so on, and
I
they
forget where
explain all that.
Yeah, I figure I read that was someone was saying that the one downer they didn't like about this documentary was it was too much revealed. Like I liked like having like a curtain in front of a lot of things, like what's going on behind the curtain, and now everything's been revealed to me. They liked the mystique of the Beatles prior to this, and they didn't like everything being so exposed and we know what's going on. And I disagree with that. I think
Me
it's
too.
I
think
I loved every
Yeah.
little second of being revealed to me.
Another good point here, somebody just brought up in the comments, I meant to bring this up earlier, is that Peter Jackson agreed and with Disney and Apple to do a 6-hour film. What he gave them was an 8-hour film, and he didn't even tell them. How great was that? He just added
Yeah.
2 hours onto it, and Disney and Apple said nothing. Nothing.
I think, again, this isn't being objective and everything. I love it as a Beatles fanatic. The more we get, bring on some more. Fine.
Right.
I want, but from a cinematic standpoint, whatever you want to say, I think they could have trimmed some fat off this. I mean, if you want to look at it from
Yeah.
objectively.
Objectively, yes. Agreed.
Well, yeah, if we were going to get something in a theater at one point and with fellow
yeah.
fans, yeah, they would have to cut it way down,
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Yeah, it definitely makes me curious about that 100-minute long preview that everybody else got.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what do they
Yeah.
actually show in those 100 minutes?
Yeah.
Because there is stuff that's, I mean, as much as I want to be a fly on the wall and see anything they're willing to give us, there's some extraneous stuff where even I was saying, oh man, not another one, whatever it might be. They can be doing Get Back, which I love, and
Or Don't Let Me Down.
it's like
those songs get
those songs
get right. They get a lot of workouts of those two songs. So maybe you shave off a few minutes of that a little bit, but not the dialogue or the talking or the meetings.
Oh no,
No
that was
way.
gold.
Yeah, I'm with you, Jim. I'm not a big fan of just jamming. I mean, some jams I love. Like I love when they do. I mean, if you call it a jam, Susie Parker, or when they're doing
Yeah.
She
The
Can't Get
rock
Through
and
the
roll
Bathroom
oldies, the
Window.
oldies stuff, the oldies medley there. That's pretty fun.
But some of it, man, it's just like it's a couple of words or a line. That's why I think Andy said this, and I agreed with him on this other show, where I don't did you say it? The bootlegs. I don't get into a lot of that stuff. I can't the original bootlegs. I can't handle a lot of that. I've never played a
No,
lot of that stuff.
it's too tedious.
Yeah.
It's too tedious. I mean, Tom, my co-host, is he's got an 80 CD thing. I mean, to
You
look,
know.
Oh, gee.
that's no way. I could never do that. It's too
No.
tedious.
No.
There is a nice condensed one out there. It's 3 CDs called the River Rhine.
That's
Yes,
good
I
too.
have that.
That's
That's
the
good.
best I've ever heard.
And Niagara,
everything's concise and it's
Yes.
great.
Niagara Gold is another one out there, which gets it down to 2 or 3 CDs as well. Same kind of
yeah.
sources, but
Those are very listenable.
That's
yeah.
doable. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, somebody mentioned the hidden microphone. It just made me think. This is a silly little moment, but I love it. At first, when they talk about the hidden microphone, and George Martin walks in, and he kind of like looks into the microphone. In the
Yeah.
hallway,
Oh, the
like
camera thing. Yeah. In the
camera,
lobby.
yeah, I'm
in
sorry.
the lobby.
Camera,
in the
yeah.
lobby. Yeah.
camera.
Yeah. That's funny.
Yeah, really.
Curious.
If you have more
curious,
questions, I'm sorry, I don't want to interrupt
yeah.
anybody.
No, curious to kind of get you guys' thoughts on the Glenn Johns, George Martin dynamic in this, because Glenn is obviously more of a central figure here in this, and George is kind of in the background.
You
What do
know,
you all
but I
think
was
about that?
surprised. On the contrary, I thought that he was actually helping a lot more George Martin. I was happy to see that happen. Like, what were they trying to do with the piano? And they had he put newspapers in there, and
Yeah, he was trying
Yeah.
to stop the echo, so he put in the piano to hit the newspaper to hit the piano strings.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, for Old Brown Shoe, I think.
right. He wanted to sound like an old kind
Yeah,
of
an
piano,
old-timey
was right.
piano.
Yeah.
And other things too. And it's so great that when they're together monitoring the sound of the rooftop, and they're going to watch it also.
But then it
How'd they-
also, you ask the question, then it's like, why wasn't George Martin more involved in them? Why was this Glenn Johns'
Yeah, I don't-
project?
still don't get
Like, I
that.
still don't get it.
Right.
What was the reason? Did he just want something different? Just to try something new? What was
I
it?
don't-
Well, I mean,
I don't
George
know.
had kind of taken a little bit of a backseat there towards the end of the White Album sessions, deferring to Chris Thomas, who was also here in the
Yeah,
studio at
shortly,
Apple's.
briefly.
So, maybe he was just taking back, and Glenn comes in and takes the reins there for a little bit. I don't know, but George is still there as the father figure, kind of overseeing.
Well, he's introduced as the what they say, the A&R man.
Yeah.
Isn't
he
that
says
how
the
George
R&R
introduces
man,
him?
George Martin. I
Yeah.
think John says.
Yeah.
Or your
John
flip,
says
yeah.
it. To draw about George Martin.
Right.
I'm sorry. I'm reading comments at the same time I'm thinking.
Mhm.
Can we also talk about how John would just go on that, and now your host for this evening,
Oh.
rolling.
yeah.
He
Oh,
loved
God.
that joke.
That's another example. I don't need
that
that
was
5
his-
times.
I did. I thought that was amazing.
He would change the name to different things a few times, which was
Ladies
funny.
and
He'd
gentlemen,
come up with
your host
something
for
new.
this evening, the Bottles.
They are represented in there with that, and also you see the Beggar's Banquet album.
Yeah.
With
Yeah.
album cover, which I think is
Was
cool.
that Smokey in the Smokey Robinson
Rob.
greatest hits too, or
Mhm.
something?
And Bob Dylan is covered
Yeah.
in there quite a bit too.
Yes, he is. Yes,
Did
he
anybody
is.
notice? Nobody notices this. One of the takes later on the roof, John says, "Everybody must get stoned."
I didn't notice
I
that.
didn't pick up
Nobody
on
noticed
that.
that.
He does. I've seen it. Like, I don't know which take it was. Listen to it. At the end of the song, he said, "Living, everybody must get stoned." I don't know which one it was.
Huh.
If
No,
it's
I didn't
"Don't Let Me Down" the second time, or "I've Got a Feeling" the second time.
Right.
Mhm.
Look for that next time.
Did you
Nice.
guys notice the little snippet of "I've Lost My Little Girl" at the end of, I think, episode 2, and they're doing the play
Sung
out
by
of the
John.
episode?
Sung
John
by
sings it.
John.
Yeah, that was pretty
Yeah.
cool. Very cool.
And you had "Strawberry Fields" with Paul singing it.
Yeah.
God, that was
Yeah.
very cool. I love that.
Yeah, I wish we had more of that. Oh, that was
Really?
awesome.
That's exactly what we needed more of. I'd rather take more of those little snippets of that and less of the repetitive rehearsals.
Yeah.
Even though I
Yeah.
enjoy it and I enjoy seeing the progress of how the songs came to be, but I feel like that's like the stuff that we really, the diehards are really interested
And
in.
let's not leave out, we talk about the progress. Thank you for making me think of it. One of the highlights is the giving birth like a newborn child to get back.
Yeah.
That
on the
was
spot.
amazing. And another
Yeah.
weird thing that I noticed, and I don't know if any of you guys are musicians or not, but if people who are watching, the fact that when Paul is composing these things right off and he has his bass on him, but he strums it and makes chord fingerings like a guitar.
Yeah.
On a bass.
Playing
Yes.
his bass like a guitar
Yeah,
when he
going through
starts
it.
doing that. And then you think of the intricacies of his melodic bass lines, how it turns from initially a more rhythmic thing to a more melodic thing later on. It's so interesting to actually see his writing process.
That's the evolution.
Right.
That's the evolution of the song, which
Yep.
Yeah.
again is great. And a lot of people might think, "I'll get back again," but that's the evolution of the songwriting, and that's
Yeah.
brilliant.
Fascinating. Absolutely fascinating.
That leads
Yep.
us into the controversial subject they were able to get in there.
Oh,
Jackson handled that well. The Enoch Powell.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep,
Yeah.
that was handled
Commonwealth.
well.
Hearing that on
Yep.
bootlegs for years, Commonwealth, and then to see it done visually was amazing.
Yep,
Yeah.
he explained it quite well, and
Mm.
you know, with the headlines and pictures, and you know, so put it into proper context.
Exactly.
So that was very good. Many people are mentioning, and of course, we you know, have to go a little more into detail. Billy Preston.
Oh,
hero-
wow.
the
that-
hero.
how have
We've
we not
forgotten
talked
Billy
about
Preston.
it yet? Oh my
We forgot
God.
Billy Preston. How could we forget the guy
hero
who saves
of
the day?
Yep,
Saves
the
the
hero
day.
of the project.
He's literally the hero of this film.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
All of
Really is.
22 years old. Isn't that ridiculous?
That's
Young, yeah.
amazing. That is astounding. And
Billy,
no.
Billy, you're giving us a lift.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, it's beautiful. That's the first. I remember when I raved about that clip when that clip got leaked or whatever. The "Don't Let Me Down."
Yes,
clip.
don't let me down.
I'm
clip.
like, oh, it's so great with Billy on there, and he's in the group, as they say, and he's the
Yeah.
fifth Beatle.
And that
And it
jam
wasn't-
of "I Have a Dream" to "I Want You."
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Billy
Yeah.
singing a little bit. That was great. Yeah.
That's a nice treat.
And it wasn't like this was orchestrated to bring Billy in to save the session. He just happened to be there because he was doing
Right.
a live appearance
It
with
was
a TV
fate.
special with Lulu. He just happened to be there. The narrative, I think, over 50 years as well, George, we had to bring him in to rescue
Right.
the sessions. You know, he just happened to be there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's not the case then, right? George didn't just invite him in. That wasn't one of the conditions that he come back, right? That just was a lucky.
Yeah,
No, but
but
if you watch the anthology, that's kind of how it's portrayed in that is
Oh.
that
Mhm.
you know, well, we're going to bring Billy back in and make this salvageable, and I'll come back. I don't think that's really how it's been now. He just happened to be in London. Yeah, come
Right.
on by. You know.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it's
agreed.
just astounding. As soon as he walks in to Apple, the Apple Studios, I mean, the mood just lifts, and then it's like, yeah, you want to sit in, and I think it was "Don't Let Me Down," and I mean, immediately, does incredible.
His playing just
So-
brought everything to life, and the other guys noticed, and
Yeah.
it got them excited about what they were doing. And you can tell that, you know, the songs finally start to take shape once Billy
With
Preston
Billy.
is involved.
Exactly.
And
And
he's the MVP, really.
yep,
Oh, yeah.
you got it.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah, and I've always said, who's the fifth Beatle? I always say George Martin. Now I'm wondering. It's Billy.
Yeah.
Well, they even discussed that at one point. They talk about, hey, bringing Billy into the band. Remember that?
And
little
Billy-
bit?
Yes.
Oh my
Hey,
goodness.
that's a legit member. Yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely. So yeah, just wish he was here to be enjoying this,
Yeah.
because he's finally really getting his just due now. I mean, he's really just the hero of the project, and you really see just how talented he was.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just incredible.
And
At
let's not-
that young age to have that much musical
Yeah.
talent, amazing.
22, you said.
Yeah, that's what
Yes.
Andy said. Yeah.
22. Wow.
Yeah.
Let's not forget Kevin. We got to
Crazy.
give Kevin a nod too.
Yeah.
Anybody remember Kevin?
Yeah.
Come on,
Of course.
Gotta,
let's
know.
applaud. Hey, Kevin.
Hey.
he was the
Yeah.
real, I don't want to say that because I don't want to swear, but they gave him all the what work.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes,
the
they
Beatles
did.
were doing that a lot with Mal and Kevin.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
send, George, send somebody out to go get me a tie, huh? I want to get a bow
Or
tie.
for the shoes.
Yeah, bring a
Oh,
shoe
those
salesman in.
shoes.
Hey, at least we learned what George's shoe size is. He's an 8 UK, so
Yeah.
Yeah.
trivia, right? Trivia, size
Good to
8.
know.
I fast forwarded through Yoko screeching. I don't know about your fast forwards. I tried to do that I had to do that for stuff when I was taking notes and go back. A little bit went a long way. If I pressed the Roku button, I was like, oh no, it's going back like 10 minutes. I'm like,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah.
you probably wasted more time doing that, Lionheart.
You just got to put it on mute. No need to
Yeah.
fast forward.
They
No.
can handle it for
You don't even have to mute. Just lower the
45
volume.
seconds, 40 seconds.
Yep.
No,
You
just
know.
lower the volume. Lower the volume.
Come on.
One of the comments there,
Not
Kevin
that
Harrington
bad.
Kevin Harrington, Mark in the comments says he's now famous for holding the lyrics to Dig a Pony on the Rooftop for John.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
that's all I really knew about him before this.
Yeah, really. You find out a lot more about him after you watch this.
He got the tea. He got the toast.
Man, they love their toast, huh?
They sure do.
Yeah.
Every day.
George is always eating something.
Yeah.
It's always him too.
He's so
Toast
damn
and
skinny.
Toast and booze. Not a
Yeah,
healthy
toast
diet.
booze.
Yeah, they were so thin. Yeah.
Oh my
Star
god.
guitar.
They had good
guitar
genes.
artist.
Yep.
Yeah.
Boy, to be young again like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they were
Yeah.
even when they were older, they were stayed
But
thin.
we didn't
Yeah.
see the famous biscuits though, or the
No.
digestive.
No.
No.
Never saw
No.
that.
Didn't see Yoko. Maybe
No
Peter.
biscuits.
Maybe he saw that and just he's holding on to that.
And of
That'll
course,
be in
there's
the
that
DVD.
that great quote by Paul predicting 50 years into the future. That of course, you
Yeah.
guys have got a lot of mileage already,
That's
right?
such a
Yeah.
great line.
Yes.
You know.
Yep. Yoko.
Anybody
Silver
notice?
Banana.
Just because we're so used to Paul now and all his contemporary interviews now, how youthful he sounds when he speaks in this documentary. Not,
Yeah.
because John and George are like frozen in time, right? Because they're no longer
Right,
here,
right.
so
Yeah.
we're so used to them. But to hear Paul talk so much, he's just so youthful and so still optimistic.
Also, him, running around and doing parkour everywhere.
Jumping over chairs and things.
Yes.
Yeah.
Boy, he's very athletic.
Yeah.
He's doing a lot
and
of that.
having Heather on his shoulders and throwing
Yeah.
her up in
Throwing
the air.
her 10 feet
It's-
up in the studio.
I mean, he was only 26.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah, and how cute is Heather? She
Oh,
was
adorable.
Yeah.
Those are some nice moments there.
Yeah.
Yep.
with
There's
her,
a lot
Ringo just goes like this,
Yeah, that was cute.
Another thing I want to point out too with Heather, that when she is playing along with Ringo,
Yeah.
she's actually playing in time.
Yeah, I
I
thought
thought I
that was
noticed that.
great.
I'm
Pretty
like,
good.
wow, she looks pretty good there.
And they had
Yeah.
matching outfits too.
Mhm.
I don't know if you
Yes.
know. Yeah, man.
How about when we talk about all the India footage that Paul was reviewing the night before, and
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that was
Awesome.
really great to see that.
Well,
you know,
yeah, that was good because he does that also in Let It Be, but there's nobody knows in Let It Be what the heck he's talking about, Paul.
Yeah,
If you,
Right.
if you weren't clued in. This thing here, like Matt said already, when I saw that, the first thing I said is, I wonder who's going to be the first of many out there to say, oh, you know what, Heather sounded better than Yoko. Even.
Yeah.
You know, and yeah,
It's okay for a 6-year-old.
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. That's exactly.
and I thought it was pretty interesting. And when talking about that India footage, like Paul's just openly talking about, yeah, I looked at it, and there's Jane, and there's Sin, and
Yeah.
women that are
Yeah.
long out of the picture. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that was
Right.
interesting.
And of course, we had
It
to
was
get
only
Mike
like-
Love in there.
It was only like a year ago.
right.
Not even. It hadn't
Not even, right?
It
Yeah.
hadn't
Right,
even
yeah.
been a year yet, and
Yeah.
so much had changed.
hmm
Exactly. Yeah.
Yep.
It seemed like things went faster back in their day, like going from Love Me Do even to Abbey Road was only a span of how many years? Things just happen so quickly for them. They're changing their appearance, they're changing their personal lives, just was like so quick.
And they churned out products so quickly that I forget which episode it was, but they're talking about what was their last single. Well, their last single was Hey Jude, which was 6 months. That's a lifetime in Beatles land.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm.
Right. It was so
Right.
long, right? Oh, that amazes me when you still to this day, people can go like 6-7 years without an album. That was the whole Beatles recording career. It was like
Right.
7 years or something like that.
Mhm.
Yeah, really.
I just want to see. Did you have any other questions down there on that?
No, I got most of them out that I was curious,
just trying to
and
think
I
if we could
appreciate
think of
everybody
anything
answering those.
Yeah.
I got all kinds of stuff here, but I'm trying to. See.
The last thing go ahead, Joe. I'm sorry.
No, I'm just mumbling. Go
The only
ahead.
thing I could mention is, did you guys mind that thing? A lot of fragments. There was mostly fragments, not a lot of complete
Oh,
takes
yeah,
of
I'm not
things. Did
big on
that bother
the
anybody?
fragments.
No,
No.
Not really.
Not
it
too
got
much.
It got the overall
Yeah.
story across. It
Yeah,
didn't have
yeah.
to necessarily be complete. I mean, we got so much.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Give Me Some Truth. It was nice to see a little of us. Give Me Some Truth, which it could be Lennon and McCartney in a way song, possibly.
Yeah, nice
Yeah.
to see Paul singing it.
Yep.
some notes that I took from it
Well,
originally.
the solo moments, I thought it was neat how we got a little bit of Another Day, like you mentioned,
Yeah.
backseat earlier. All
Yeah.
Things Must Pass. I mean that. Well, not they didn't call it Child of Nature. What do they call it in here?
Road
On
to
the road to
Marrakesh.
Marrakesh.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Marrakesh.
Marrakesh. Yeah,
yeah.
Which I
Very
thought
John
was
good.
refers to it
interesting.
as that at one point. Too.
And he was really keen on rehearsing it again there in Savile Row the one day. He's like, I want to rehearse Road to Marrakesh again. So
Right.
Well,
right.
that I liked. I liked that after the first episode, you got to see John more, assertive, taking a lot more interest, and
Yeah.
stepping up to the plate by the time they were in the Apple basement.
He
Yep.
I
took
like
on more
that.
of a leadership role, which I thought was
Yeah.
great to see him
Yeah.
back in that role a little bit after kind of relinquishing it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
yet
one of the-
Paul still felt like he was second in command.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
yeah.
Yeah.
And one
Well,
of the
I
things
think
that I knew
this is like perfect for Paul now in his career. I mean, I think this makes it look like he wants to know this now in his life, and he didn't break up the Beatles. Well, this certainly shows him trying to keep the Beatles, doing everything he can to keep
Yeah.
the Beatles
Yeah.
together, and
Right.
also shows him as the genius that he is. I mean, that with coming up with these songs every time he scratches his eye for it.
hmm
It's fantastic. Yeah, the heroin thing. There's that part in there. Oh, the Peter Sellers was that whole scene. That was really awful.
That was weird.
I didn't
Well,
like
that
that at
was
all.
Awkward.
That was that day that John was really strung out and he had gotten sick during
Yeah, he said
that
that.
interview.
that's when he was sitting there and he was like throwing old Beatle lyrics out as answers, as replies.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, and he mentions too whatever he said he was watching films or something. I was stoned and high,
Yeah.
and then McCartney, of course, the publicist, what's the PR guy? He's like, oh, Lennon, you really have to say that publicly?
Yeah, and Ringo was sick, and
Yeah,
he
Ringo
was
was
like
so
falling
sick, well.
asleep. and-
There are moments in this where Ringo really does look totally just like does not want to be there. Like just
Yeah.
not
Many-
smiling.
Yeah, well,
He's just sitting there on the drum kit, just like just not feeling it.
Right.
So there's
right.
Yeah.
it's
he could have been hung over a lot because Ringo later on talked in like in the early '90s around Time Takes Time talked about all the alcoholism. I mean, you don't see Ringo like flopping around drunk or anything, but he could have been having a hangover or something. And I love that moment when he comes in and he says, "I'm not gonna lie, I'm not too
Yeah.
good today." or something
Yeah.
like that.
I think a lot of these calls were early in the morning. I mean, especially at Twickenham, they had and they
Oh.
were they were 8, 9, 10 in the morning. They were not ready to do that stuff at that time. Admittedly,
Yeah.
they weren't ready to record then. So it's just they weren't into it. But the film crew and they were all hired and they had to be there. So they just, it was 9 in the morning in a big empty studio lot. The energy was not there.
Yep.
Exactly. Yeah.
It is that moment where George Martin says, "You're going to be when you go into Apple, you're going to be getting rid of these, right? The boom mics or whatever, something like that." And what's the bit when John says something? Or Paul says, I'm talking to John, not you.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
That was in episode 3, Joe. I had that
Yeah.
written down in my notes. He goes, I'm actually talking to John, not you. I was like, whoa.
Ouch.
Ooh, man. Boy, have times have changed from Love Me Do.
Yeah. Yes.
That was interesting
Wow.
too.
Yeah, really.
So, anybody have any other thoughts? Anything you want to talk about?
I just think we've been given a gift, folks, and let's savor every
Yeah.
moment as long as we
Yeah.
can.
Well, let's
Yeah.
talk a little before we go about the people were asking. In the comments, because we don't know. They say, when is it coming out on Blu-ray or DVD? Is it coming out? The only thing that I know is going again by that Peter Jackson interview. For things we said today, he was saying that he thinks it's going to be coming out on Blu-ray. It's just that, according to him, Disney's not interested in extended features, doesn't think anybody cares about that sort of thing anymore. So it's unlikely, unless it does really well, if it comes out by itself and sells well, maybe later they
Right.
put it out, or if it does really well on Disney Plus or whatever, because he's
Yeah,
ready to go.
it's
How
clear-
could there not be a version that has more footage in it? I mean,
Yeah.
this is Peter Jackson we're talking about.
Oh
I mean,
no, he said
Right.
he has it. He said in that he says, right, he says that he wants to do this and he has it. I think he said before it goes back forever or whatever. He has more to tell, another couple hours or whatever he
Yeah,
has.
it's clear that Disney has no clue what it's like to work with the Beatles demographic audience, and they don't think like we would all go out and buy the extended cut if you gave it to us in 2 seconds. They just see it as if they did that with any of the other stuff they have, like with the Marvel releases or Star Wars stuff. Like none of that really.
This is a
seems to-
different
they don't
market.
have
This is
extended-
a different
exactly.
market. It's a
It's
different market.
completely
Disney.
different.
Oh, you'll sell.
They don't get
this.
Yeah.
The subtitles. Bob says he hated them. I don't mind reading. At first, they were a little intrusive to me at the very beginning for like a.
You
10,
needed
5
them in
minutes.
some
Yeah,
parts.
you needed them.
You
You
needed
did,
them.
Yeah, I was watching
definitely
with
needed
some
them.
newbies who aren't the biggest Beatle fans, and they appreciated the subtitles because they didn't understand that Liverpool or that British type
No,
thick accent. They were speaking very fast. They were like, "Oh, I'm glad they put some subtitles." I understood what he was saying, and so most people thought they were great. But
Yeah,
Yeah.
you definitely. I appreciate that they were there. Just sometimes I personally wondered. I'm like, well, I don't understand. This one is perfectly loud enough and audible enough, and I can understand it. It's subtitled. Other times, maybe not. I'm like, it wasn't consistent to me all the time in that sense. Like some of them didn't need subtitles, and they were there anyway. Some of them might have, and they weren't there. I'm like, but that's just silly quibbling. I mean, I thought it was well done. And
yeah,
Good comment. Good comment here. Farrell McNulty. Disney does not own Get Back. They are just distributors. It's up to Apple to decide whether there's a physical release.
oh,
I
well,
hope
then I
that's
would.
true.
Yeah, okay, that's great.
Okay.
I think we
That's
have a
good.
much better chance then.
yeah.
It's gonna get a physical release, and there'll be
yeah.
extra stuff.
In some form, yeah. it will.
Disney, work on Marvel and go down to Mickey's Toontown Cafe and don't call it a day. I mean,
Thank you so much, Robert, for bringing this up. I like that right away in the beginning when you got the
Yes.
identifications of all the people, all the players.
yes.
Mhm.
That was really good.
Absolutely. A lot to keep track of, particularly for, casual fans. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. So
Huh.
I guess we'll wrap it up unless anybody has anything else.
No, I'm good.
So
No.
well, I thank all of you for participating in this episode of Fab Gab. Let's go around and talk about if we have anything doing. I guess I'll just pass for now. what about you, Matt? Anything?
I just nothing major on the horizon. Just
Oh,
chug it along.
excuse me. I'm sorry. Why am I passing? I do have something. Talk more talk tonight.
That's right.
If
You
you
got a
like
big show.
this, we're going to do it all over again. We're going to do it again in roughly 2 hours.
Oh, you guys
so.
are going live again tonight?
Yeah, talk more talk.
Man.
9 p.m. Eastern.
Oh dang.
Okay, 9 p.m. Eastern. It's right here. Talk more talk on YouTube now. We used to do Kit. We used to do Facebook. Now we're coming out. We're doing it on YouTube.
YouTube. Yep.
So go over there. You could go through this all over again, but it'll be good because we're going to also have the two Kens. We're going to have Ken Womack, and is going to be on, and we're going to have Ken Michaels. Michaels wasn't able to make it the first time. We talked already about parts 1 and 2. We talked about, right?
We're gonna have the full
already.
crew tonight.
Yeah. It's not going to be an exact repeat of this because, we're going to.
No.
Yep. Because we're going to
I'm
be.
sorry. Yeah,
No.
Sound like that.
Yep. This is going to be a little different slant.
Oh, okay, and you're going to moderate, so
Yes, I'm moderating.
I like that. So it'll be even more. It'll be the same topic, but even different and more interesting the way Kit sets it up.
No, I don't know about that.
No, this is just pretty much loosey goosey as I call it. This one. And I think it worked out well that way. I think I got everything. You both all got everything in there, unless we forgot something important.
Yeah.
But it's all covered. So, Kit, what's going on with you? And your book signing. You had a book signing too.
And so, I did a book signing on Friday at Blue Village Vinyl, and I want to thank everybody who came out. And I think there are a couple people in the comments who were there. So thank you so much for doing that. I'm going to be on a Plastic EP show tomorrow night, talking about I don't know if you could guess what I'm possibly going to be talking about on his show tomorrow night. And Ivor Davis is also going to be on. So I'm really
Cool.
really looking forward to hearing what he has to say about it. So he'll have a particularly interesting insight. I think that's going to be on at 8 p.m. Eastern. But check out my Facebook page, and I will let you know the specific time. And as Joe just said, Talk More Talk, we're going to be on tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern on our YouTube channel. So join us over there. We're going to be talking about part 3, and we're going to then talk about how this series will impact Beatles history in general. Is it going to change the story at all? I think this will be an interesting discussion, and we want you guys to come and join the conversation and let us know what you think. So
You
we
know,
will see you later
it's
tonight.
interesting you should say that, kid. It made me think of. I've been reading some negative reviews, some very positive and some negative reviews of this. And one of them was, I think it was NBC. I think it was said the Beatles documentary we that wasn't needed or
Yes, I
something
saw.
like that.
Oh, I read
I mean,
that.
could you think of anyone that was needed
Seriously.
more than this one to
Yeah.
set the record straight?
Exactly.
They don't know what they're talking about.
Exactly. Yep.
I mean, what are you
Stupid.
into, the Bay City Rollers or something? Come on, whatever. I don't know.
SATURDAY.
Right.
All right, Andy, what's going on?
Tom and I just dropped our most recent episode on Two Legs today, which was an episode with the lovely Natalia Cardenas, and we covered a topic basically on the wives and women in the Beatles history for part 2. We had her on a few months ago, and Natalia has a podcast which just covers the women in the Beatles history, which is really nice. She's been a nice addition to the community. It's just focused on the women in the Beatles history, and obviously we had her on to talk about all the one in Paul's lives. So there were quite a few, as you can imagine. So we had her on there. We just obviously, some of you know, we did 3 nights live in the wee hours of the morning to react to Get Back, which is on our channel. And we're going to be doing a new show in a few weeks celebrating the 50th anniversary of Wildlife with Mazzy. Those of you that follow the Steve Hoffman forums, he's going to join us for that. And we're getting close on our subscribers. We're almost at 900 on our YouTube channel. So please like and subscribe.
It's a little late for this, but that's one thing we didn't talk much about. George leaving the band. Anyway, I know we had a lot of things going on at home in his personal life, but also the way it is presented in the movie, right? It's as if he's just feeling out of it because of being excluded a lot and can't compete with the egos of John and Paul. That's the way it looks in the movie,
Right.
the way it's presented.
Read Patty Boyd's book.
Yeah, and there's all that. So it's probably a combination of stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
All right, I'm sorry there. So at least we got that in. Anybody's still around. So, okay, Kate, how about you? What's going on?
I've got nothing.
You're with me. You're with me.
For the first time in a long time, I have nothing.
Remember that kid? I always felt like when I do Talk More Talk, it's always like, well, all these things, everybody's got books, and and I'd say, I got nothing.
It's not like Charlie Brown. I got a rock.
But who knows? There may be things that happen in the future. If you are not subscribed to my YouTube channel, please do so. And also, if you happen to be on TikTok, please follow me on TikTok for all kinds of Beatles news and little crazy snippets that I do and unboxings and things and yellow submarine slippers. That's like the highlight of my day today is more yellow submarine slippers.
I saw that video.
Very
yes,
cool.
indeed.
That was awesome. I did not expect that at all.
Yep. Congratulations.
Oh, thanks.
All right, everybody. So if I
right.
get the names right, that's just the hard part. For Matthew Street, Kid O'Toole, Andy Nichols, Caitlin Larkin, this is Joe Mayo saying all things must not pass. I don't know. I can't think of a good thing. All right, everybody. So take care. Thanks for watching.
Thanks,
See you
everybody.
around.
Bye.
Good night.